Jeffrey, are we ready? This is the Holyoke City Council Charter and Rules Committee meeting taking place on Monday, July 17th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. You can come down here to City Hall to be part of the meeting. You can also view it on Boxcast through Holyoke Media, YouTube, and local channel 15 or 12. And there is translation as well. We have myself today as a chair, Chair Maldonado Velez. We also have committee member Councilor MURPHY-ROMBOLETTI here present, and Councilor McGee should hopefully be on his way soon. With us in chambers, we have Councilor McGivern that has joined us, and we also have Treasurer Rory Casey here with us. And over on Zoom, we have City Clerk Brenna McGee is here, Chief Pratt, and Councilor Will Puello. And as always, joined by Mike Bissonette from the Solicitor's Office. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to take up item 1.
Entertain a motion to take up item 1.
So motion to take up item 1 off the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 1 was an order put in by Councilor MURPHY-ROMBOLETTI. And I'll read the whole thing quickly. The City of Holyoke, through its Honorable City Council and Honorable Mayor, petitions the Massachusetts General Court to enact legislation establishing an appointed treasurer for the City of Holyoke in the forms set forth below. Provided, however, that the General Court may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. The second part goes on to read an act of establishing an appointed treasurer for the City Council. This act proposes to change the city treasurer from an elected position to an appointed one. The appointment will be made by the mayor with approval of the City Council for a term not to exceed 5 years. And qualifications for the position may be established by ordinance. If adopted, the treasurer elected in the 2023 municipal election will fill the vacancy in the office for the remaining 2 years, and the treasurer will be appointed to the position following the expiration of that term in January 2026. So this item has been taken up before. It was taken up in October of last year when we had the initial conversation. The mayor had joined us, treasurer had joined us back then. And I know towards the end of that meeting, I know Mr. Attorney Bissonette is here. One of the requests was to have some sort of legal form or a ballot question sample that we can work off of. I'm wondering if that ever happened. That would be to Attorney Bissonette.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I can.
But now you are on mute. There we go. Okay. Great.
You're good, Attorney.
We have a draft home rule petition, basically waiting with.
I didn't catch any of that.
One is a very good,
Attorney Bissonette, we're literally catching like 1 out of every 20 words you're saying. I don't know if you can turn your video off, that may help, or possibly dial in. I'm not sure. I can give you the dial in number.
better.
Oh, that is better.
It is better.
Okay. Let's. We're running, so we'll see.
No, we're still losing you.
With regard to the still losing. Okay, let me dial in then.
Okay, thank you. So as Attorney Bissonette gets on to give us an update on that, I'm wondering if the maker of the order wanted to say anything or...
Sure. Thank you. So yeah, I think this is just something just to refresh people's memory. I basically took the same language from the last time that this was presented before the voters, the main difference being who the appointing authority is. And I think it's just noteworthy to point out that, you know, I know that we have other discussions happening about ballot questions, and The major difference between this and the CPA ballot question is really about this being a home rule petition for a charter change. And so the state does require them to be on a municipal ballot, and that would be this fall, or waiting until 2025, right, 2025, which is not ideal. Especially this is something we've been talking about for a while. We're having these conversations as well about a CAFO, Chief Administrative Financial Officer. So I think it's timely, and I'm curious to hear from the law department what, I know we have the city clerk on the call. So I want to hear what the timeline could look like. But I do think it's important to note that there's, in my opinion, a significant difference between this ballot question and a ballot question that is related to raising or not raising, but lowering taxes. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Romboletti. Is anyone else? I don't know if Attorney Bissonnette is next or back on. No, but Brenna is here. So Brenna has, actually Mike is, okay, go ahead, Attorney Bissonnette.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now we can hear you.
Very good. We have a draft home rule petition. What we needed was actually section 3, which is the meat that goes into the home rule petition. And what's been proposed in item 1, certainly if we're going to try to do it for this municipal election, there needs to be some method of managing the, I guess, the coincidental election of the acting treasurer that's also to be on the ballot in November. So much like what happened with the change in mayoral terms when Mayor Morse resigned, this would need to intercede prior to the actual election. And to get it on the ballot, I think as Councilor Murphy-Romboletti said, we need 45 days, which by my count puts us somewhere around the middle of September. I think September 22nd may be the drop dead date for getting something on the ballot for the November election. So if you want to proceed tonight with a ballot question, certainly that is doable and will be ready for your agenda on August, first meeting in August. I guess the only meeting in August. The other thing I will call to your attention are the provisions under the Section 63, known as the Optional Forms of Municipal Administration Act, which allows the city to, by majority vote of its council under Section 14, under Section 14, to bypass the ballot question and directly create a Department of Finance with a Director of Finance. And the instructions are in the statutory authorization as to how to merge the collector and treasurer and the other financial officers. So that is also an option. But it does not address the question of how to distinguish between the election required for the treasurer's position this November if the optional forms of municipal administration path was chosen. I'm not sure if that clarifies things, Mr. Chairman, or makes them muddier, but I just wanted to make sure that that was understood as well as another option.
Just thank you, Attorney Bissonnette. Just to understand what you just said, so we can either do the ballot question or go through the home rule petition, get the treasurer ballot question on there, get it appointed, or there's another avenue where we create the finance department and sort of pretty much makes a treasurer position moot because this other department takes over all the finances.
At some point, there would have to be changes to the charter. If that was the route the council chose, I think there would be a very similar situation to when the actual name of the Board of Aldermen was changed to City Council, and there was a fairly writ large home rule amendment that had to be done by petition to sort of clean up the charter. If this was the route taken, then that would be the next step. We would do a home rule petition to clean up some of the sections and ambiguities within the charter. But certainly, if the council wanted to take the Section 63 optional forms route, that could happen right away. That could be passed by the council, could be signed by the mayor, put into effect on whatever authorized date you wanted to start it, maybe January 1st. But that is an option.
Attorney, sorry, Councilor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI has a question.
Are we now having a conversation about the CAFO?
Is it together? So, Attorney Bissonette, so we are in item 1 talking just about the treasurer with the home rule petition. There is CAFO as item number 2, which hasn't been, we can take it up as a package because it's all finances. But I mean, it almost sounds like the ballot question is not needed if the 2/3 majority of the council decides to sort of shift the finance department or create a finance department.
So we're talking about two different things, right?
Yeah, one of the reasons why this came into being, this optional forms, was to enhance home rule so that every single issue did not have to come before the legislature. So it's sort of an expansion of the rules originally brought by the Home Rule Amendment in '66. So that's sort of empowering communities to do certain things to reorganize its government. There's a section on community development and planning. There's a section on code enforcement that would combine the offices of the health board as well as the building inspector into one of code enforcement. So communities have been given by the legislature these powers to act to try to create economies of scale and needed changes at the local level. And so this is sort of a way to work through that and deal with the changes that you want to make, but also be mindful that at some point a charter change would have to also be enacted.
I'm just gonna. I feel like I'm losing it. So just to clarify, so like if we as a council, so I know item 2 is talking about CAFO, restructuring a whole finance department. If within that restructuring of our government, it is decided that also the treasurer position is no longer an appointed or an elected position, is that possible, or does the treasurer ballot question still need to happen even with the restructuring of the finance department or creation of the finance department?
No, the optional form says that the finance director is the title they use. CAFO is just another sort of name. Chief Administrative Officer, Chief Administrative and Finance Officer. So there's a variety of terms. The statute used the term of art for when it was created, which was Finance Director. And the elected positions under that get subsumed. So in some communities like Chicopee, the collector is also elected, as are the 3 assessors. So all of those positions those elected positions would get subsumed. Here, the only elected position is the treasurer. So that would also go under this. But the question still remains, what happens to the required election in November of 2023? And so that would be a treasurer elected without any real authority, I would think, unless there was a home rule petition taking that off the ballot. So you've kind of got two roads to travel here, and I don't mean to be confusing, but the timeline on the home rule petition, if we get it to you on August 1st, you pass it, it's got to be passed by the legislature by September 22nd at the latest. So we're looking at 6 weeks to get the legislature to do something, and they haven't even passed the budget yet. So it's going to be a bit nerve-wracking, but I submit that I think Senator Vilas and Pat Duffy can get it done. And I'm sure Jose would have a better handle on that than I do. The other alternative here is to go ahead and do the home rule, but also go ahead and adopt the optional rule. So you've got a home rule working to get rid of the election in November, and you've also adopted the finance department. You can begin setting that up whatever date you choose.
Okay, I think it's a little more clear now. Like, we can't, regardless of whatever we do, like this, in order to get it to not be an elected position, it has to go up to the voters. However, it can go into the finance department under CAFO, but still be an elected position, which is not really, it wouldn't make any sense. Or, I mean, there are other cities that do it, and, it may work for them. But, okay, I think I'm clear now. My other question that I have, and either the clerk or if you know the answer could answer it, is this is a home rule petition on the municipal election. Does it have to show up in a municipal election, or are there avenues so that we can get it on other elections? And I say this from the point of, I know, like, for just an example, Mayor Garcia's veto was around like the voter turnout and whatnot, not having CCPA particular this year, and having it next year when there's a higher voter turnout. Is that a possibility, or is it mandated that these sort of home rule petitions need to show up in a municipal election? Or is there a way around that? For the clerk or for Attorney Bissonnette, whoever may know the answer to that question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So I'm pretty sure that the only questions, and Attorney Bissonnette can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only questions regarding municipalities that can go on a state ballot would be a CPA question. I'm pretty sure anything regarding charter changes has to be done during a municipal election.
That's right.
And there's no home rule petition for that. Not that we want to go through it, but since we have home rule petitions for everything, I'm just wondering if there is an avenue through for that.
Not that I'm aware of.
That's all I got. Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
My comment was about the timeline. Attorney Bissonnette's response saying that likely the legislature would vote on September 22nd. And I was wondering, maybe this is a question for the city clerk, but it feels like from my memory that was similar to the timeline that happened for the last time this was on the ballot. But I could be going crazy. It didn't feel like that was too late. I know it's a lot to ask, but
I could look it. I don't have my computer with me here at home, but I could look it up when we did put all those. Because I think it was on there the same time when we moved the mayor's term from 4 years to 2 years. We reduced the size of the city council.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with you that it was. I don't know exactly which meeting we ended up passing it at, but I know it was a pretty tight timeline. And I know Mike said that 45 days, but when I was looking through some of my notes today, I had 35 days.
Okay.
Which obviously my office would prefer 45 days just because we have to get the ballots printed. And then now that we have mail-in voting, we have to be prepared to get all those ballots out in the mail as well. So, but either way, 45, 35, they're kind of similar. Just that's what I remember from my recollection, but I can definitely check on that tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. No problem.
Thank you, everyone. Does anyone else have anything on item 1? Go ahead. The treasurer is here,
so I want to
if he would like to say, I know he said it, he attended the last meeting, appreciate it. Go ahead, Treasurer.
Yeah, I won't even sit down because it won't take that long. Just to reiterate what came up at the last meeting and some subsequent conversations since. The state's come in, at least for the past 17 years, asking us to, as a community, to remove this from being an elected position. When you look at from 2007 to now, almost every instance has either been a special election, somebody leaving, an appointment, a subsequent special election, somebody leaving, an appointment, special election. Let's stop at that. When I interviewed, I said, you know, I was hopeful this council would pass this with the idea that, you know, 12 to 18, maybe 24 months to help kind of bridge that divide until we could appoint the council and the mayor could work together to appoint somebody. I know there's desire to merge treasurer collector. You know, there's other conversations going on. I think now is the time. We can't delay any longer. It's too important to push off to another election. And Councilor Murphy-Romboletti is absolutely correct. I believe that it was actually the first meeting in September in 2015 when, at the time, Council President Jourdain introduced amended language having to do with all of these home rule petitions the last time there were major ballot questions. That was from September, the first meeting in September, maybe there's a special meeting in late August, and the final vote was taken by the legislature, and it was signed into law by the governor around the 23rd or the 24th of September. So there's still plenty of time to get this done, especially if you're able to take this up at your next meeting in August. So thank you.
Can I ask one clarifying question? Yeah. Through the chair? Sorry. Bad. I just want to make sure that I understand if this doesn't get on the election this fall, it will have to be 2025.
Based on the conversations that I was involved in 2015 with House Counsel, with our state rep, our senator, and the law department, Kara Kuna here, who was leading that effort, and then subsequently Sarah Carroll after that. And that was an identical scenario. Special election, treasurer left, somebody was appointed, and it was a special election to finish that term. The language that Counselor is in front of you is identical to what House Counsel had provided to the council, which is that you would hold both the special election and have the question on the same ballot. And then, as is in front of you right now, whomever is elected in November, we have no idea who that'll be, whomever is elected in November would stay as the elected treasurer for the remainder of that 2-year term, finishing out the term, because it's a 4-year term, finish that out, or sooner if they resign. Meaning that who's ever sworn in January has a 2-year term. If they leave, it automatically reverts to this appointed position.
Okay. Thank you. That's super helpful.
Thank you, Rory. Is anyone else? Councilor McGivern.
Thank you. Real quick, I think we're all leaning towards the issue or not the proposal here, but that, we need to do something with the treasurer being an elected official. And it does stand on its own, except it's part of a financial, what I call checks and balance with the city. And even though it stands on its own, it does go, at least for discussion purposes, hand in hand with a proposal to create a chief financial officer, manager type position. And the reason I say that is if you look at what we have, most of it by charter, we have a mayor who is the chief financial officer by charter, by definition. in charge of these offices. The treasurer is elected to give it some autonomy away from room one. The auditor is appointed by the city council and has a permanent or a non-term limit to a point where the auditor becomes autonomous. And then we have the other, various officials, whether it be the tax collector, the assessors, and so forth. Not as important, but not as important what I'm trying to say. So if we are going to go forward on one, we really got to have a plan for all of it. And, I think it's equally important, especially if we're going to do away with the, with the mayor being the chief financial officer. It might still be in your folder. Councilor McGee and Councilor Bresnahan proposed an ordinance or charter change years ago to go to a town manager. I'm not too sure that's still on the table, Councilor McGee, but I just remembered it as I was cleaning my desk here. But what I'm trying to say is we need to look at the big picture, because, fixing one isn't fixing everything. Fixing who's the treasurer going to be appointed by, who's the treasurer going to report to, and so forth, I think is part of what I'm trying to say, and it all comes equally important together. And I understand what Attorney Bissonnette's saying. There are options not to do a ballot question, but 9 out of 10 times, the state, when you propose a home rule petition that changes the actual form of government, which this would do, taking this away from the voters, the state's going to tell you to do a ballot question, even if you don't.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. Anyone else? So Attorney Bissonnette, what he just said was, if this is what we want to pass through, we can have the language ready for August 1st at our next meeting, vote on it, then get sent over to our state reps and senator and go from there. I do hear what Councilor McGivern did say, and I think item 2 may take care of that too as well, because I think this is one piece of a bigger issues, I guess, that we have. But this is one piece that, to the treasurer's point, has been asked of us for the almost 2 decades. So I'm in favor with it. So whatever the motion.
I'll make a motion that we vote in favor of item 1 and ask the law department to draft the ballot, the home rule petition language to send it to the state. I don't know if there's like specific language I'm supposed to use in this motion.
No, it's
Okay.
You make a motion to receive, adopt, and have a ballot question drafted for the state.
Second.
I didn't make that motion.
You made that motion.
No. I'm just telling you how you'd have to make your motion. I'm not in favor of one. Just to be clear.
Love it. Okay. Democracy.
So
But I still will help out. I have no problem helping.
you're down to 10 votes. So are we going to have a discussion on the big picture, or are we, if I could ask a question, I think this is very important. If the ballot question is going to talk about who appoints the treasurer?
So, if I may, Chair?
Yep.
The language that I included in my order here before us, it does say the appointment will be made by the mayor with approval of the city council for a term not to exceed 5 years. Qualifications for the position may be established by ordinance. So when I wrote that, that was my intent. So I'm happy to hear the discussion. I mean, so that, I just want to, I don't know if that answers your question, Counselor.
No, it does. It does. Now, who's going to appoint the chief financial officer, who's supposed to be the mayor?
So I think that's that's item 2.
Right. It's the same language. So where's checks and balance? It's gone.
So can
Go ahead.
in the spirit of a good conversation, I understand. I personally feel like right now we do have a lot of financial oversight in city council, between appointing the assessor and appointing the auditor and the tax collector. At the end of the day, if the treasurer and if it's a CAFO or whatever, if they don't get approval from the auditor, which is our appointment, something can't move forward. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because maybe, but I feel like there's still checks and balances. It's just different than what we may be used to. So that's why I've kind of put this language forward. But yeah, I'm open to.
No, it's, if I could, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, that's a good point, but you're talking about appropriation, the appropriation process, which we are part of. The mayor initiates it, and everything has to be appropriated at one time or another. But what I'm talking about is issues like in the Treasurer's Department now that Mr. Casey inherited, reconciling revenue coming in. Who determines, that? If the mayor now has the sole say over the treasurer, because the treasurer reports to the mayor or chief financial officer, which one we have, where is the stopgap, to say that something might be going on? If the auditor doesn't catch it, no one's going to know. And the mayor can, and I'm not suggesting anything, but possibilities. And, it's just for discussion is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
We if we want to get it, get it away from being an elected position, I don't have a problem. But I want to know who's going to be the chief financial officer before I vote on a ballot question that takes away the treasurer being an elected official and not knowing who or what is going to be a chief financial officer in the future.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. Anyone else? So the motion was to receive and adopt, send to the solicitor's office to have the home rule petition drafted for the August 1st meeting, and we go from there. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Aye. So that's 2-1 going to the August 1st meeting. Cool. Next. Motion to take up item 2.
Motion to take up item 2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 2 was an order put in by Councilor McGee that the position of Chief Administrative and Financial Officer be created and added to Schedule A. We'll give Councilor McGee the opportunity to speak on it since it is his order.
Yep, so thank you. So the mayor did reach out to me, and in order to start the discussion, because it was going to be put into the budget to then the ordinance and create the ordinance surrounding it, to bring it to us in order to start discussion and see what we thought about it, what the details are, kind of just vet it to see where we're going. I mean, we already started with the first one, so it kind of transitions into this one to, see how we're going to proceed with our new, financial department and how we want to design it.
Does anyone else have anything to say on item 2? Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Yeah. Actually, I saw
Councilor,
Councilor Puello's hand
yeah,
up first.
Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. No, I was just going to ask, is there any more information on what the CAFO job is? I almost kind of wish that it was taken up together with item 1, because I have so many questions about it. Why can't the treasurer, what's this CAFO going to do that the treasurer can't do? What's the, is there any more information on the job description, the job title?
So I have just as much information as you do, and I think that's part of what we're doing of figuring out what those roles and responsibilities would be. And I don't know if we're collecting information, if Councilor McGee had, I know the mayor's not here, and I know the mayor has had an idea of what a CAFO would look like, but I don't have any information beyond what you have as well, Councilor Puello. Councilor Puello, go ahead. Your hand's raised.
Thanks. I just want to, I just want to make one last point. I mean, with the information we have, I don't know, like, I guess knowing what I know about this and what I've heard the mayor say before, I don't think I would support this just because, like, I don't know, like, it sounds like, one, like, what can't the treasurer do that this CAFO job wouldn't do? And number two, like, it almost sounds like the CAFO job is the mayor's job. So it's like, if you're running to be mayor, like, you're saying you're the most qualified person to do the job, not the most qualified to pick the person to do the job. So, I don't know, I was looking at the budget book, and I think it's something like 125 grand, the mayor makes 100 grand, like, I mean, I just don't know, like, it seems really redundant to me, like, we're just adding more positions that do the same thing, like, why can't the mayor just do the CAFO job? Or if you want to have, like, this extra CAFO job, like, why can't this appointed treasurer do something along those lines? But, yeah, those are just my 2 cents. Like, I don't really like this CAFO thing. I don't really understand it. I'm not really sure where it's going, and I think it's just redundant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Puello. Councilor Jordan.
Mr. Chairman, yet have we received a proposal, like with the job duties and all of the description about this? I mean, this is obviously a major change. We would need a whole proposal to study. And I would also need to see an organizational chart that has what's going to fall under here and under there. And and I also get concerned about, you know, where are we going in the context of all of this? And maybe it's part of the bigger conversation we're having about the treasurer's office. I mean, we're talking about $1 million to clean up the treasurer's office. And so effectively, we're privatizing already the responsibilities of the treasurer's office for 3 years, or that's the current proposal. So I would like to see how that works in conjunction with the CAFO, in conjunction with the tax collector. Are we going to merge tax collector in with treasurer and maybe take one of them to be the collector treasurer and one be the deputy collector treasurer? I'd like to see how these all things interface. I'd like to at least have a starting proposal from the mayor or whoever's laying this all out. And then from there, we can begin to have a work product to work from, and then, you know, draft ordinances and charter revisions. It's why, while like number one is going to be very difficult, I'm sort of in the same boat as Councilor McGivern mentioned, which is it's difficult to support item one when we don't know what's going to happen with item two and like how all these pieces of the puzzle fit together. And it's kind of difficult for the council to just start passing it out in pieces when you don't have the whole mosaic together. So that would be kind of my concerns. I need stuff to work with, and it's kind of like I believe the mayor is moving it, so the issue, so which I'm glad he is, but I'm just saying we need the skeleton and the of what they're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jordan. Councilor Murphy-Romboletti.
Thank you. At first I had a clarifying question. I wasn't sure. I didn't think that this, because I know this got sent to ordinance as well, so I just wanted to double check. It hasn't been brought up yet, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming, I'm not going to speak for the chair, but I'm assuming you didn't really intend on us to make any decisions tonight. But I do think it's good that we're having the conversation, because I think having this conversation while having the conversation about putting something on the ballot, it just only helps to inform the public of what these different roles could and should be. And, you know, it is something, both the non-elected treasurer position and something like a CAFO position have been things that the state has repeatedly told us we should be exploring. So I'm glad that we're having the conversation. It's obviously a part of a much bigger conversation, and hopefully for the next one, maybe the mayor can come in and share what his maybe more of a job description. So then, you know, we can all feel a little better about an elected treasurer position. But yeah, I think it's all about timing. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-Romboletti. And to your point, yes, this was the first time that was brought up in this committee. So, and I know it hasn't been brought up in ordinance yet. So this has been information collecting. I think there's a lot of questions that are still up in the air, like what does the department look like? It's not just one person, so I think there's a lot of questions still in the air. This was just that initial conversation to start asking those questions so that, maybe the mayor can come in next time and answer a lot of the questions that we may have. So if anyone else has any other comments or questions, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, real quickly, I failed to mention the auditor too. I'd like to know how the auditor is going to interrelate with the new CAFO position too. So, yeah, if they could start circulating that around, sort of the vision, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on item 2? Right, so
Motion to
Motion
table.
to table.
Oh, second.
motion to table item 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 2 is table 3-0.
Motion to take item 3.
Second.
Motion to take up item 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 3 was a order put in by Councilor Israel Rivera, Givner, Maldonado Velez, Murphy-ROMBOLETTI, and Jenny Rivera to establish a police commission by virtue of a special act. This, similar to item 2, it is to start the conversation of what the, thank you, Treasurer, coming in, what the police commission can look like. Personally, 2 points. 1, every department has some sort of commission, some committee led by citizens to make sure that there's, checks and balances going on in each department. So that's one way for me that, that reason why we should have it. And there's also the reality we had the MRI study that came back saying the police department needs a lot of assistance, for lack of better words. And I think the committee can be helpful in getting the police better up to the standards that they should be getting to. I think the conversation, based on what I've heard from other counselors, I don't think anyone's completely opposed to it. I may be wrong, but I don't think anyone's completely opposed to the police commission. I think what we're all going to be figuring out is what the commission actually looks like. I know it can either be a three-person commission, 5-person, 7 persons. I know Springfield did a 9-person citizens commission, so it can look any which way. And I just want to open it up to the floor if anyone has anything to say on item 3.
Thank you. I just am glad we're having the conversation. I don't think more accountability is a bad thing. This isn't necessarily to undermine anyone's position or oversight. I just think that it's an important part of our community that we need to talk about it. And it's just something that comes up a lot from the community at large. So I'm definitely open to hearing how others feel, and I look forward to having a deeper conversation. Thanks.
Just the history, I believe it came up twice as a ballot question to form a police commission, and both times it was approved by the voters to create a police commission. So this is just something that citizens have asked before. So it's nothing that any particular counselor is asking for. The citizens of Holyoke have asked for this commission to happen. We also have we also have Chief Pratt here on the Zoom. If anyone has any questions for Chief Pratt or anything around this as well, or if Chief Pratt wanted to say any words around the police commission, you're more than welcome to as well, Chief. Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thanks. I just had some general questions. I'm still not 100% sure. Obviously, an advisory police commission, I think would be awesome. What authority, what powers is this commission gonna have? What role is this commission gonna have? You know what I mean? What's it gonna do?
Hello. So that's what we're going to be deciding on. So my goal for tonight, what I really actually wanted, I was going to ask the solicitor's office to start drafting up language as to what can be in a charter around the police commission, similar to the fire commission, similar to DPW commission, all these other commissions. And the question is too, like, what power do the other commissions have in our city? Is it around firing? Is it HR? Is it just policy? You know, I think one of the things that we got from the MRI report is that we have police out on the field with no training, no on-the-field training. So, like, maybe a commission working together can make sure that that's not happening, that we actually have a force that's being, you know, training, whether you're finding training sources. So, like, again, I have an idea of how it can be, but also I would like to see the solicitor's office to have a draft language so then we can work off that and, you know, pinpoint what the actual responsibilities would be. Councilor Puello.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Mr. Chairman. That's really helpful. Yeah, I think that's really a good idea, just to define like what this committee is supposed to do, or this commission. Just like as an additional comment too. I mean, I want to point out that we had the police audit. And we've had a lot of people, I've had constituents email me, call me, asking for a special meeting to talk about what happened. And I know the mayor's been told, hey, let's have a special meeting. I know the president's there tonight, hey, let's have a special meeting. You know, I think like sometimes like we do certain things and we start making commissions and we start doing other things that almost seem like we're just trying to pass off the hot potato to somebody else. Like people are asking for a special meeting, like have a special meeting, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I guess I'd just like to see what this commission is going to do, and yeah, 100% in support of an advisory, but yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, you know, I think, you know, when you think about what the fire commission does and even the DPW commission, there's tasks related to hiring and grievances and stuff like that, which is definitely something to consider. But I also think one of the pieces that is often missing is, and I'll speak from experience, sometimes citizens don't feel comfortable going to the police department to file a complaint. And I envision a police commission being a separate entity that might be able to support that. And, you know, I think these are all things to take into consideration, but that's just something that I feel might be lacking, respectfully. And it's not, I don't think it's any ulterior motives. I don't think it's anything malicious. I just think the way that it's designed now, it might not, we may be missing things that are happening because folks just don't feel or know what they should do and who they should go to when they have a concern. So that's just something else I wanted to add. Thank you.
Anyone else on item 3? Councilor McGivern.
I mean, as the chair pointed out, you know, we've had a couple ballot questions where voters have expressed their interest in the police commission, which again now puts us in a position to define what is a police commission. What is a police commission going to oversee? What is it going to replace? Or is it going to be separate from the existing rules and charter and organization laws of the city and the Commonwealth? And that's where it is a little bit unique to other commissions. The unique part is our charter very clearly, you know, puts the mayor as the appointing authority and manager of the chief of police. And it's either the charter, continual language, or perhaps by ordinance or a combination, where the mayor also is the promotional person for superior officers within the police department. So it's one thing to have a police commission, but we need to define the role. You know, is the chief of police going to be appointed by the police commission? I don't think anyone's saying that, because that would be a major charter change, and that has not been on the ballot yet. And if a police commission is going to have certain duties and oversight, you know, is it what power would they have if they have nothing to do with the appointing authority for the police department itself? And then there's the one area which is the most difficult thing to to talk about or to try to come up with an answer to, and that is, will it become a civilian review board for complaints against the police department? And that's, you know, something I've never seen defined or created that works in other cities or any communities. And all it does is cause more problems, more disruption, and more, you know, anarchy within the police department itself, because now you don't have any clear authority over to who's in charge.
Councilor Jordan.
One other thing, just another aspect of this that should be researched is with under the new police regulation that we now have the post commission, which did not exist previously. So there is a vehicle for people to make complaints about, you know, inappropriate conduct against police officers or people that are doing allegedly nefarious things or other such thing, or people who have misconduct. So there is a state board now, and it would be interesting to examine. I think we should want to also understand how does that now interplay, because that's a new creation, and how does that work, and how do citizens access that, and how are we, should there be something on the Holyoke Police website that says, hey, you know, we have a post commission, and if you want to make a complaint or you have a concern and you don't feel that the local police department would handle that appropriately, you can go to this independent group and be heard and have that. And, you know, they have a lot of authority. I think they, up to and including, you know, kicking police officers out. I mean, they have pretty broad authority as I understand it, but I think we should, just as we're considering all this, we should research that piece of the story and find out what rights citizens have under that too. So that might be something for us to also consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jane. Anyone else? I guess like following Councilor Murphy-Romboletti's point around like just having a independent or just a board that citizens feel comfortable to going to. I understand there's the post commission, which that's one avenue, but even then, that's a statewide commission. Having something within our own city may have more of an effect on the people. So I think that's where I'm at with that. I guess where I'm at right now is I'm wondering if what we ask the solicitor's office is almost like, for our next meeting, what are the ordinances that will be affected regardless of how we want this commission to look like, but what languages are we going to have to change, and can we get that information so we can start changing it? I'm not sure if you understand the question I'm asking for. So
I think it makes sense, but
to Councilor McGivern's point around like there's a lot of charter changes that would have to happen if a police commission were to come to be. I guess my question is just for example, the mayor appointing the chief and the races or like other things that McGivern said. Can we get like a list of like all the ordinances will be impacted so that we can also, you know, so when we do create the committee, we know how it's going to impact all these other parts within our ordinances? Does that make more sense, the question? And can we get that list of items for our next one? Because at the end of the day, if we do end up having to commission these ordinances are going to have to change, right? So having that information before us so that when we're making this new committee, this new ordinance, so that we can reference those things that are going to have to change as well. Attorney Bissonnette.
I think the scary part is I'm starting to understand it, exactly what you're asking. Yes, I think we can have that ready for you.
Thank you, Attorney Bissonnette. You know, we got each other. I think we understand.
We do.
motion to.
Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, one other point is we should also get our arms around the current civilian review board that now exists too. Like, how often are they meeting? Do they have minutes? You know, what has been their rules, and what are they looking at currently, and how are they interacting with the police department? That also is something that we haven't had, you know, because I think the last time we voted on police commission, I want to say is around maybe roughly 2013. So we didn't have that. That's a relatively new creation. How is that working out? How many people are on that? How are people selected? That also, there's been a lot of new developments in terms of all this stuff. So just make sure we're looking at the whole picture.
Thank you, Jordan. To that point, I guess we can also, when we bring it up again in charter and rules, possibly invite some of the members, or just invite the civilian review board, and the mayor as well, just so they can have their input as well. Because they have been meeting. I know they don't necessarily have any power per se. It's really just an advisory. And I'm envisioning a committee with a commission with some sort of power, but seeing what they've been experiencing would definitely help. So thank you for that recommendation. Okay, so the motion would be to table this so that when we take it up, and then to ask the solicitor's office for what Mike understands I'm asking for, which is pretty much everything, all the ordinances that will be affected essentially by adding a commission to our ordinances. Thank you. And all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then, and also to invite the Citizen Review Committee next time we bring it up. That's it.
Great. Motion to take item 4.
Motion to take up item 4. Can we take up item 4 and 5?
Sure. Motion to take or suspend the rules and take items 4 and 5 as a package.
So suspend the rules, takes item, I second that. Take items 4 and 5 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So item 4 is a communication by Councilor Jourdain, the Law Department, City Council. Well, actually, it's an order that he sent a communication with that the Law Department and City Council meet to discuss the recent Supreme Judicial Court decision in the matter, Barron v. Colenda, SJC 13284, and the impact of the decision as it relates to and/or modify our council rules. And then item 5 is an order that was put in by Councilor Bacon and Councilor Puello to modify Rule 6D to add that the use of profanity is prohibited, and a member will no longer be permitted to speak on the question under debate if they use profane language. Item 5 was taken up previously back in February. We had a brief discussion on it, and then item 4, the decision came out. So that's where we're at. Is anyone? Councilor Jourdain?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So this is a very interesting case. It definitely impacts us. It impacts all legislative bodies that have public comment periods. But more globally, I would argue it affects basically all these rules of decorum, essentially, because by extension, everything that a citizen could say at a meeting, a counselor could say at a meeting too, right? Because what you're essentially saying is you can't have rules if you're having public comment relative to anything that would relate to the content of, decorum. Essentially, people can basically, if I understand it correctly, and I would assume there's limitations on this as there is limitations on most things, and how we get our arms around that is people just come in here and just start blasting people. And conversely, we start blasting people on XYZ. That essentially, one of the things that we try to pride ourselves on is that, we take criticism and we give criticism, but we try to do it in reasonably respectful terms and keep it to facts and on point as much as possible. But this case says that, you know what? If somebody wants to come in and say XYZ, the question becomes, are you regulating content and making sure it's content neutral? So, I think back, traditionally the city council never had a public comment period. Now, by the way, we're not required to have a public comment period. That's the first thing. And I suppose if this got completely out of hand, we might have to revisit that. Potentially. That certainly would not be my desire as somebody who, when I became president of the council, I strongly embraced public comment, and it started under my watch. So I thought it's an added dimension, but at the time, it's supposed to be about the public having an opportunity to share information with us. It's not there to, target people, counselors or department heads or whomever, and just start, really letting into people. It was supposed to be about people sharing their opinions on various topics of the day that are relevant to the city council and our decision-making process. So we'll have to just think about how we balance it all. I think we'll have to do our best to make and give people a vehicle to share their thoughts, but also count on people's goodness to also be reasonable too. You know, you don't want people coming in here and wildly slandering people or you know, saying totally outrageous things too, because that's not really advancing the debate either, you know. But on the other hand, it's important for us to hear unpleasant things if people feel that they're true, right? So that's also important, and people are entitled to have their opinions. On the other hand, I do want to know that there will be calls if, you know, we go down that direction. Then you're going to have department heads or city councilors or the mayor or whatever. They're going to want an opportunity for response time to that. So that might be what we have to build into some of this process too, is, okay, we got wide open public comment, but traditionally we haven't had response time, right? So it may be somebody says, you know, XYZ, but now if somebody says something about a person, they should maybe be given equal time to respond to that comment too, because that's also not fair either, you know. Where people are put in a false light or given a misimpression about somebody. So I think a lot of this counts on people's just goodness and decency in balancing all this and advancing the discussion. But this case is out there. It stands for the principle that, and it's really hard to argue that the SJC is wrong because, you know, First Amendment is given the highest of latitude, as it should, correctly. And so I can see why the court came down with the decision that it did. But now as bodies, we have to balance all of this. If we're going to continue to have, which is certainly my hope, that we continue to have a public comment period. And, you know, so I think maybe some of it becomes an appeal for people to do the right thing and make their points without becoming vicious at the other hand too. But feel free to, you know, say what they feel and is in their heart too at the other time. So, you know, it's all of that. But I think we'll have to think about, again, how we respond to that. As far as this item number 5 goes, I think we can make our points without using profanity. I don't know if that goes. I don't think that's necessarily protected speech. I don't think we need to convey our point dropping the F-bomb or various swears. I would hope. I don't think that's what the SJC is looking to do. Of course, the one analogy that was brought up in the case, I believe, is the public comment speaker referred to one of the chairman of that select board as acting like Hitler. I believe that was ruled out of order. But on the other hand, you know, we have a wide audience of people, and I don't know if we necessarily want people coming in here and throwing the F-bomb down, or one can just allow their own imagination how vulgar that could get. So I think we would have to talk to the law department, get their guidance on the profanity that's spoken to in item 5. But, you know, I don't think there's anything we immediately need to do with item 4, but it's certainly something that we need to kind of think through thoughtfully. It was a number of years where we kind of thought about how we developed the public comment period, and we kind of have, it's been working for quite, 10 plus years now, and I think most people are really good with it and are really helpful. So I think we just kind of be thoughtful about it and think it through, and if it means we need to have a response time maybe added to it, maybe that's it. And then it's also, at the council meetings, theoretically this would apply there as well, because, these same rules. So anyways, I'll stop there, and thank you for taking up the item tonight, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Councilor Jane. Councilor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI.
Thank you, Chair. I just, the item 4 is really interesting, and I think Councilor Jordan's point in his order about possibly needing to modify our council rules if they are not actually considered constitutional. That would probably mean more orders would need to be filed in order to change those rules. But for item number 5, you know, I would also really love to hear what the law department has to say about profanity, because that feels like a First Amendment thing, and to prohibit it feels like could be unconstitutional. And you know, I'm not dropping F-bombs here in council chambers, and you know, if I did, it wouldn't be something that I really planned on doing. But I will say that, you know, it's up to the public to decide whether or not that's a big issue for them, and if they don't want to vote for someone who has used profanity before during a meeting, then that's their decision. But I don't believe it's our decision to police that. It also just feels like not the smartest thing we could do. So yeah, I would love to hear from the law department. It doesn't have to be tonight, but just if profanity is, if you can really actually, especially with what is said in the opinion that's mentioned in item 4. So thank you for having this conversation.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI. Councilor Israel Rivera.
I think for me, with like item 5, what would define profanity? Because it's a spectrum, right? It's a wide spectrum of what things could be considered profane when the words come out of your mouth. Then the other piece, kind of to technically silence someone because they used profanity. I don't know if I'd agree with that. Just because I use profanity, I'm not gonna deny it. I feel like the order is written towards me, even though it technically isn't, but it feels like it, right? It's not just gonna be me. There'll probably be other counselors after the fact, down the road. And if we're trying to be inclusive within this community, we're not trying to silence nobody. If someone is literally being belligerent and vulgar directly at someone, that's a different concept than to literally, I wouldn't say an F-bomb, but drop a profane word that puts more emphasis on a situation or a circumstance. It's kind of like writing. There's an art to it. And when you drop certain profane words, sometimes there is an impact that you intentionally are looking for, because that's just the way it is. That's what I learned in my English class. I have to be honest with you. Like, the way you write, it's written for a reason. And to say that the way someone talks is profane, who's the one making those rules? Who dictated what's profane and what's not profane? Where did that come from? Where did all of this come from originally? So I would not be in favor of this. I would not vote in favor of it. I do agree that people should not come up here, not a counselor, not someone that's coming to speak public comment, and just scream profanity at people, right? And directly at a particular counselor or a member or another person in the public. That's different. That's not what we're here for. I feel like the council chambers is a place for discourse, where people are able to exchange ideas and exchange conversations. Not everybody's like that. Everybody grows up in different neighborhoods. Different people grow up in different circumstances. And we're working on it, right? Every day we're working on becoming better people. One day I might not drop a profane, right? A bad word or something like that. But until then, right now, this is me. This is who I am. And at the end of the day, I feel like there are going to be other people that come after me. And instead of trying to shut them up, let's find a way to make people, bring people in to try to get the message across for the city. Because if someone's using profanities because they're emotionally attached to something. But that's just my opinion. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you, Councilor Rivera. Any? No? I didn't see your finger. So the MMA had Massachusetts Municipal Association had a webinar on this about 2 months ago or so. And pretty much what they said was, so items 4 and 5 have to deal with language and profanity, but it has to deal with two different people. Item 4, this judicial court decision is geared towards the public. And basically what I got from that webinar is that if someone from the public comes into public comment and just F-bomb this, F-bomb that, Hitler this, whatever it is, they have every legal right to do so, right? What we as a council have the right to do is stuff like if we're limiting public comment, we're doing a minute and a half just to, I guess, have certain limitations if we want, but at the end of the day, like, the public has the right to say whatever they feel like saying to us. Now, then us on the council side, and I think this is has been one of my struggles, is because city council rules are for the city councilors, right? So I know one of our rules, which is not mentioning members, any other member, we do that a lot where we tell a member of the public, oh, you can't mention names. But at the end of the day, they're not the city councilor. We're the 13 members that were elected. So like these rules apply to us as a city council. The public can say whatever they want. Now, us as city councilor and as a president can, enforce the rules within our body. And, every 2 years when we get reelected, we are technically supposed to go through every single rule and decide if these are the rules of our body, right? So, like, I just wanted to make that point where, because we do that a lot with, particularly with members of the public. And I mean, I don't want to be one that I'm getting yelled at or, saying bad words to, whatnot. But at the end of the day, that is their freedom of speech to say these things. And us as elected officials, sucks to say it, but like we almost have to take the heat for it, even for that minute and a half, for that minute, or for however long they continue to have these things set towards us. So I just wanted to make that point. I don't believe that for 5, we should add anything. I think the last conversation we had in February, I think we're all sort of on the same page. Like there's ways to say things respectfully. To Councilor Rivera's point, the reality is some of us use the F-bomb sometime or any other term just because we use it to emphasize certain things, or that's just the language that is in our vocabulary, and that's okay. As long as it's not being disrespectful, I think that's fine. So I don't believe that we should add anything else, but I think we should just be, have proper decorum to each other, treat each other with respect, and I think that's fine. But for item 4, public comment, yeah, I mean, I'm not advocating for people to not come in August 1st and just start swearing up a storm, but like, that's just the reality of what this court decision was, and that's what I got from the MMA webinar. So yeah. Anything else on items 4 or 5? Councilor Jordy.
Agree with pretty much most of what you said there with a couple things. I remember now, public comment, period, as a general rule, people cannot speak at any of our meetings unless you're a member of this body, period. That is the standard, okay? We then created a rule to create a public comment that allowed it. Many city councils in the state have them, many city councils do not have them. So we decided 10 years ago to allow it, and so we created a rule that allows that exception to the fact that only members speak at the meetings, okay? So it is technically a construct of our rules, just so we're clear about that. But if you're gonna have one, then we have to follow these rules, which I understand what the court is saying here, and it makes sense what they're saying. Because they're concerned about regulating content. The question is, if we're gonna continue to have that, how do we, if we're going to have those type of rules on content that are wide open, that's everybody in the room though. So I suppose theoretically, and I'll be interested to hear what the law department's opinion on the profanity question is, what are the limits, right? Because basically what they're saying is there's time, basically content neutral limitations, time, and I'm forgetting some of the other words that I want to use, but basically dimension or time and place, basically these content neutral regulations that one can put. But when you start saying this speech is good versus that, agree. I can see where the court came down on that, and that makes sense. But I would argue that if that's true, then every person that sits on this body is a citizen of Holyoke, okay? So any right that a citizen has under our rules, any counselor has. I don't think there would be any exception to the membership on that either. So whatever the ground rules are going to be is going to be the ground rules for everybody. And whether it's under our rules allowing public comment or citizens speaking as elected officials back and forth in this room. So we just need to be cognizant of that because every person in here, you have free speech, okay? And this isn't just about citizens have free speech. The citizens that are elected here have free speech. So we have to think about the implications of that. And then we have to think about how do we respond to that or allow an opportunity to respond to that. And during the debate, it's relatively easy. Any counselor raises their hand, gets recognized by the president, and they can respond to what any other counselor says during a question under debate. Public comment will be perhaps a little different. We may have to have a response time, where we have 10 minutes allocated, but if there's also an open period for somebody comes in and says X about a department head, or, we've never really thought about this, but if somebody comes in and says, I say Joe Banana is a crook and he's stealing money from here, here, and here, I think Joe Banana has a right to then come in and say, hold on a minute, I'm not a thief. I didn't steal this, or this, or I'm not Adolf Hitler, or I'm not whatever. I think that's only fair that person has an opportunity potentially to respond to a comment like that. So it raises questions. It raises that how are we balanced with all this and fair? And so that, yes, we're giving people their opportunity to be heard, but the people who might be on the receiving end of that also have an opportunity to be heard, either at the next meeting or that meeting or whatever. Because obviously a department head or city councilors, we're here in the room. So, if we want to have a response, we could do it right there because we're listening to it. Or if somebody goes, and especially if we're going to allow any profanity here, right? I don't know where people are going with that, but if you're going to say you're a no good FFF, right? And what are we talking about here, guys, right? So my point is, if that's going to be allowed and there's no holds barred, then somebody may want to say, hey, time out. I don't agree with being called an FFF or whatever the word is, and I think this is wrong and this is the truth, and someone's not a crook or someone's not a whatever. And, we're just going to have to think that through as to how we want to do it and what's reasonable. I don't pretend to have the answer this evening, but as we think this through, we're going to have to think of how we craft this in a way that's legally compliant and is also fair and reasonable and advances the discussion and I think Councilor Rivera was right, this is a forum for discourse, and that's what we're trying to keep it here, and try to elevate the debate here a little bit too. Be truthful, and we should be able to make our points, and they can be hard-hitting points, and it can be stuff that nobody wants to hear, particularly maybe, but that's okay. That's how we get to truth, hopefully, and we need to have that type of open forum to do that. I personally feel you can do it without profanity. I don't think that elevates the discussion. I think there's other words that we can use personally, but whatever. But as far as the other, making aspersions, it's if somebody is doing something wrong, that's part of the open debate process that I can say, you're doing something wrong that I disagree with vehemently. Right? And then they can say, no, Jordan, you're 100% wrong, and you're no good, blah, 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 right? That's okay. That's all fair game, but we're just going to have to think about how we package all of this so that it's reasonable and gets us to advancing the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to, two things that you said. The first thing with our ground rules, and I just want to reiterate, what we decide as a council for our city council rules, these are rules that we've agreed to follow as a body. So if it were to be that there's no profanity and this is a council rule that we've agreed on, then at that point, those sort of city council rules, the president, and again, this is going back to the MMA, the president has the right to step in and be like, hey, these are rules that you're not following. Yes, you still have your freedom of speech because you're still a member of the public, but within this time, you are one of the 13 members that decided, hey, I'm going to follow these rules because these are the rules that we decided on, which then shifts into like, I know the public comment section is within our city council rules, and that's why it happens. But the publics didn't agree to our rules. The publics agreed to being public and saying, you know, and being allowed to speak. So I think for us, like if it gets to the point that we don't, if it gets too out of hand or whatever you decide, then that's us shifting our rules to not allow public comment, those sort of things, which I'm not for it, but I disagree with the, like, yes, we are members of the public, but then also when we're within this chamber, we're the 13 elected officials that decided on these rules to, you know, how we're going to handle everything in this body. So I just wanted to say those 2 points. And the last thing I wanted to know is you said FFF, and I'm just trying to come up with like what the FFF would be in those 3 things. Councilor
I
Murphy,
have no idea. I totally made that up.
I don't know what they are. Councilor Murphy-ROMBOLETTI.
I was also thinking about that. I just wanted to throw this out there. I think it was the town of Amherst, or it's somewhere in Western Mass, but now I'm trying to remember. But the way that they do it is that after public comment, every counselor gets like 5 minutes to just talk about what they're going to be voting on that night and like what these big ticket items, like, here, I got this, that, and the other thing. This is what I'm going to be voting on. Cool. So then when you have to vote on it, you don't have to, like, repeat yourself. You already explained why you're doing that. They kind of, like, reminded me of that when you were mentioning, like, a response time. And I think in that period of time, folks get the opportunity to respond to what comes up in public comment. So I'm just throwing that out there. We got to consider different ideas. Maybe that also means our meetings don't go until 11:30 at night sometimes. I don't know. But you still need the updates from committees and stuff. But I just can always learn from other municipalities. So I just think it's a good conversation.
It's a good point.
Councilor Pueyo, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. My bad. I meant to raise my hand earlier. So as a co-filer, yeah, I agree with just about everything that's been said. I think, like, I don't know, I guess the main thing I disagree with is just like, I don't know, I think people can express themselves clearly and articulately and beautifully and all, you know, say all these wonderful words and give all these beautiful speeches without dropping F-bombs. Like, people have been doing it for a very long time. You know, but I don't know, I guess I just disagree with that slightly, but I also at the same time agree and see where they're coming from. Like, you know, you can use, I don't know, more words. I do think specifically though, like at least with this 5, if we don't want to do anything else with it, like at least with this 6D rule, at least to address when things are being specifically said about members. You know, I've sat here and I've seen people have, I mean, meltdowns, you know, and I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my God, I wish, you know, somebody would say something. But I don't know, I guess maybe if there's no appetite, I don't know, I guess I understood the part about hearing out what the legal department thinks about this and then moving forward, but also maybe if there's no appetite to do anything with that, then maybe doing something about specifically talking about people or at people, I don't know, in that general sense. Thanks.
Councilor Vera.
And I just wanted to reiterate that, like, it's not that I'm for profanity or that I want people to come into council and just swear their heads off. That's not the case. I think for me, I don't want people to be afraid to come in and speak up because they don't feel like they are articulate enough or they don't feel like they can speak in front of people because they swear a lot and all the other stuff. If people are blatantly dropping a variety of F-bombs, which I think if we go back for the last 2 years, there might be maybe one, and it wasn't a counselor, it was probably someone on the side. And I don't even think that it was directed at someone, but in a sense, I feel like it would be the president's duty at the same time to kind of try to mitigate some of this, right? So like if someone is directing at someone and using profane language toward a counselor or another person in the public, it's a different circumstance, it's a different situation. It changes things, right? Because it creates confrontation, creates conflict with people in face, person to person, and we got to try to like prevent any type of confrontation that could possibly lead off of this, right? I don't believe that it's gonna get to the extent where people will be just being like, F you, you're cool, I'm out, right? I don't really think that's gonna be the case. But if that does become the case, right, we do have the president, right? That would be the idea. And there is a panic button, I believe, under the president's desk and under Jose's desk. So there's a variety of different options that are here for us to be able to mitigate situations that arise. Again, I don't think people should come in here and swear their heads off. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't want to tell people that they're not good enough because they swear a lot to come into council and speak up. Some people do have real life issues and want to be able to come and address it, and they feel intimidated because of certain things. I know for myself, for a while, I kind of felt that way, but I'm different. I'm able to work around things. I don't care what people think, and I don't care what people say about me. So at the end of the day, that's just me. But I do hear the concern of it becoming the Wild Wild West with a whole bunch of slurs or bad words being shot across the room. But yeah, thank you.
I love all the different ways we can say like swear words without actually saying the swear words. It's hilarious. Anyone else? Are we? Councilor McGivern. Oh.
Thank you, Chair. I think listening to the public is a very important part of our responsibility and a very important part of our duties. And when we decided to make it part of our regular city council meeting, you know, we went out on a limb a little bit. And I don't think it's wrong to ask people to be respectful. I'm not so much worried about profanity and swearing, because an adverb versus an adjective versus a noun all can be a swear is a big difference. But when someone stands up there and this case is interesting and referred to the chairman of the select board as Hitler, I think they crossed the line into hate speech. You know, might not meet the definition by what hate speech is, but it's very close. So what's wrong with asking and expecting people to be respectful when they stand at that mic? I agree. I think I'm as thick-skinned as anybody. I have my moments. But when someone comes to that mic in public comment, it should be about issues. And the reason I say that is we don't get to debate that. Our decorum and our rules are about we debate each other, and we have to respect that. And in the heat of the moment, that can be difficult and can lead to some very, very emotional conversation and debate. But when someone is up there slinging, and it doesn't make a difference if it's a swear or not a swear, into this room, I don't think that's the way or what we think public comment should be. To me, I want to hear they're saying, hey, Joe, on item number 14, we want you to consider this. This is why we think you should vote no. This is why we think you should vote yes. Not there's something wrong with you if you don't. There's a difference, and we can all have differences of opinion, but I think respect is not too much to ask for, because there's a lot of young people out there at home watching us. And I think decorum is what we should be teaching, not just practicing.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. Councilor McGee.
Yeah, are we asking legal to look at our rules to see if we're in compliance with this court case? Is that the main view here?
So, I mean, that is just as it relates to and or may modify our council rules. I mean, yes, that we can ask legal for that to see what needs to change within our rules.
I mean, I'm if you look at the legal update that was sent out, just going line by line, if you look at the board's rules, it says all remarks, dialogues in public meetings must be respectful and courteous, free of rude, personal, and slanderous remarks. And then if you go to the ruling, it says, the court found that it allows for lavish praise of official, but doesn't allow for harsh criticism, which in essence is unconstitutional. Well, if you look at our rules, just on the agenda side, it says under Section B, there will be a public agenda item, and there's a typo there. It says teach, but it's at each regular city council meeting. This shall be at a time where citizens may speak freely about issues both on and off the agenda item or meeting agenda. The city council will allow up to 10 speakers, and each speaker is allowed to speak for 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds. So it's very broad. There's nothing there saying you cannot speak if you're doing this, this, and this. Ours is very broad to say you can speak. Actually, in the meetings, I'll stand corrected. I always said it had to be items on the agenda. It's items on and off. So you can talk about anything. So I just want to make sure, looking at this case where they were really defining what you could say, which is not what we are doing. We're actually the actual opposite. Saying, you can speak, which then gets to our rules, as you correctly stated, which is decorum. When we're speaking amongst each other, no member shall debate or reference another member or a member of the general public, but only in respectful terms. So it's always been the understanding that if someone is being tough or swearing or being disrespectful, that we'd say, yeah, you just can't do that. So are we trying to define that piece? Or are we just going to leave it the way it is because, as I've been here 18 years, Kevin's been here, Joe's been here a lot longer. One time in this last 2 years that we had something happen, was a full meeting. There was a subcommittee meeting. There was the chair that was running it where a gentleman was a little unruly, and he stepped in and said, you're being disrespectful. Could you please stop? He'd say, you cannot speak. You cannot do this, because really what this case then goes on to say is after the constituent said the things they said, they ended the meeting, shut the speech down. Mm-hmm. We've never done that either. Mm-hmm. We just said, please, could you not do that? Could you kind of just get to the issue? So do we really have to redefine everything, or are we, to the legal department, the way we are set up, in compliance with, if it ever happens again, do we really have to go outside the scope and start defining everything? Because if you do, now you're kind of tiptoeing into that case.
Is that a question for?
I think that's the legal. I mean, my view, and I could be wrong, is the way we have it set up, we should be good to go.
I agree. So I want to say I agree with you.
I'm done for the night.
No, I agree with you. I think the points that I was trying to make is the fact that we take the whole city council rules and we try to apply that to the public, right? I think within your right to be like, hey, be respectful and whatnot, but I think ending it completely, that's where it steps into this, where you're like, no. So we're gonna say Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments. You read the rule. I mean, based on that, I think you're right. I will say one of the other things to the point Tessa made, which I thought is a good one, was some of the communities, it isn't just about responding to things that you want to correct, but also you'll see a lot of times that people, when they're speaking, they'll say, hey, can you do X, Y, Z? Or is somebody looking at, ABC? And it would be nice if we did have an opportunity to say, while the person's still standing there, or maybe right after everybody's done talking, you can say, oh yeah, Department Head X is working on that issue, and they might appreciate having the update. I want trash pickup on such and such on, whatever, or I wanted this street, repaved, blah, blah, blah. Well, hey, did you know that in a week that's going to happen? And it might be nice to give them that information. And plus the people that are listening to the meeting, who might be their neighbors or who might be ever, it would be nice to give that type of information. And so as we think about this, and I think, again, no hasty thing one way or the other, because I don't think it's a major problem. I think we might want to consider some sort of, after all the public comment, not that people have to, but there might be a good thing to build in a few-minute response time. Just in general, does anybody want to share any information, that type of a thing, or respond to anything in public comment? Not necessarily just bad, but information sharing. So that might be something we want to consider building into it, where we have a 5-minute window in the aggregate after public comment. That might be helpful.
Thank you. Councilor McGee, Attorney Bissonnette went off mute. I forgot to answer your last question.
Okay.
You wanted to, Attorney Bissonnette, and then the floor is yours.
I think Todd's absolutely right that when we looked at this after the decision came down from the law department, we decided that there really didn't need to be any immediate fix. I would note that the decision doesn't specifically pertain to government bodies, only to public discourse. And as Councilor Jordan pointed out, there's no requirement that you have public comment periods, other than the public hearings that are required when you deal with special permits and zoning matters. On general council matters, there's no requirement for public hearings to be held or public comment to be allowed. So, well, that's one choice. I think in person may be a little bit different than on Zoom for some people. You may want to consider that. Depending on how long we're going to be allowing Zoom. And there's also some consideration about the extent of what you can ban for content. And it really is probably the most difficult of the constitutional questions. It's the shouting fire in a crowded theater issue that really has yet to be fully explored in a government setting, government meeting setting. So I think that's where we're headed next, to see what the extent of the name calling, how far that can go before it becomes a disruption in a public meeting, which is what I think the government tried to argue in this case and failed. So I think there's still some gray areas on both sides, but for the moment, the council president is absolutely right that there's no need to rush to make any changes here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McGee.
I will suggest one change. And I wrote it down, so I guess I can't make the official unless we change it. And we'll file an order, Councilor Jane or I, whoever else, that section B of item 7 agendas, at the end where it says City Council allow 10 speakers, each speaker is allowed 1.5 minutes, 90 seconds. After that, propose something like, and a 10-minute response time for all councilors to address comments or questions made will be allowed. But then I think we have to address, everyone's going to have a time for response, not everyone gets 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes each.
10 minutes total, not
right.
10 minutes each.
So
Yeah.
that's where.
So that's definitely a separate order, right?
That'll be a separate order, but I think that addresses
We'll
that
debate
issue.
that, right?
No, it'll be a
10,
separate
10 minutes
order.
will be negotiable.
11,
But, yeah.
11 and a half.
Hey, why not?
Okay.
But that
Kevin
I think
Jordan
that
show.
helps. Yeah, I know. Not 10 minutes for Kevin, just 10 minutes.
So I'm waiting for the separate order to debate. Okay, so a lot of things were said. I think after all was said and done, I think at least for item 4, we agree, or at least I agree that there's nothing that needs to be added. Our city council rules sort of meet what this legal update is, with following up with other orders that will be coming in. And then with the modifying Rule 6D, I know personally for me, we've had good conversations around it. I think we as a body have sort of agreed that, being respectful, limiting profane language, I don't believe it needs to be added to the rules. So with the committee, if y'all think they're complied with,
I would say.
or actually no, because
Force complied with.
item 4 is complied with. Item 5 would have to be a yes or a no.
Okay, so motion that item 4 is complied with?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So that's complied with. And then item 5, we either accept it or we don't.
Motion to deny?
Second.
So motion to deny item 5. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And that's that. Okay. The last we have
Should we
item
take these as a package?
all of them
6, 7, 8,
and 9.
and 9.
It's all about committees.
Okay. Take up as a package?
Second.
Suspend the rules. Take up items 6, 7, 8, and 9 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So items 6, 7, 8, and 9. The first 3 were put in by Councilor McGee. First one being that we send all roads and sign issues to the Public Safety Committee. Item 7, that all employment-related ordinances issues get sent to the Public Service Committee. And then item 8, that the Public Service Committee be renamed Public Service and Human Resources. And then there's item 9 that I've put in way long ago about creating a cannabis committee to deal with marijuana special permits and ordinance changes. So these seems like simple rule changes within our city council rules. I know we've had a couple months since the last conversation. I'm wondering if I'm supportive of items 6, 7, and 8. Personally, for item 9, just having been here for a year and a half, I don't think we need another committee. So at least for me, item 9 is something that I would not mind a leave to withdraw. But then items 6, 7, and 8, I think I'm in favor of them. If we can change it, but what do we want to do? Because I don't think it's mostly coming down to us just making the changes with our city council rules, and then the president just making sure those are being followed. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. So for 6, 7, and 8, I'm also open and fine with making those changes and bring that to the full council to vote on. I was trying to remember from the last meeting. I know that there were conversations about like if you can refer things that are not, or that are ordinances, and like to the non-ordinance committees. And I don't know if the law department is able to weigh in on that. So that's my first question for 6, 7, and 8.
So the question to Attorney Bissonnette, can ordinance changes be sent to the non-ordinance committee? You're on mute, attorney. Oh no, you're not. Sorry, there's a couple of you.
There's 2 of you. Okay, but then I'm just gonna pause for a second. Maybe he'll come back to us. But item 9, the only reason why I would, as much as I don't think we need more committees, social consumption is something that is going to come to us at some point. There's still a long way to go, but even though the volume of special permits that you entertain, that's just still something that might be coming. So I just want to throw that out there.
No, thank you for that, and I agree. I think it could be, but I also think like we have 7 committees, and I would say there's probably like 3 that are like the most active, and then there's other committees that could be added on or other orders can be taken up. So what can we do to give these committees these sort of orders and whatnot? So this won't be the last thing we hear about either a marijuana committee or like a subcommittee within committee. I know we try to do that with ordinance ones and whatnot, but specifically like having a whole separate marijuana committee, I'm like, can barely handle our 7 right now. Like, yeah, let's do, that's just where I am with that one. And just so that I can start clearing out the jacket because things are getting really packed in there. So that's with item 9. Councilor Jordan.
I myself would not have a problem with 6 going to public safety because they already deal with the DPW now. And to have the engineer coming in and talking about parking regulations or how they're going to put different signage or different things, I think that kind of makes a lot of sense. If we wanted to, because I know one of the secondary roles of all this is to take workload off the ordinance committee, which I think that kind of makes sense. So, and I know Izzy says, send me more orders, right? I'm looking for stuff to do over here, right? So there you go. Because that does consume quite a bit of time, all the road and signage issues. So I think 6 makes a lot of sense. 7, I think we should be a little more cautious about because, one, it isn't always as easy as just saying, well, just the employment related item. There's other impact to all the other ordinances and stuff about if you did this for this type of category of ordinance, what's the implication on other facets of the other ordinances. Sometimes having the committee looking all of these things together makes a lot of sense. And, because one is it is a salary item, is it a title issue, is it the ranges, is it vacation, is it holidays, is it paid time off? I mean, that begins to get to be pretty sweeping and how all these things interplay with each other and what positions are in civil service, which positions are not in civil service, which positions are allowed by contract. We set those things by ordinance, i.e., like we recently did the fire chief, and he has to be on a contract before, they were just giving him a contract, and we didn't even have an ordinance for that. But the police chief, we actually had the ordinance. So I think rechanging the name of the Public Service Committee, I don't have necessarily a problem, or if we have some discussions and doing the appointments and maybe having some of the discussions, but I would be a little hesitant on 7 right now I think we should think number 7 through some more and see how taking 6 away is going to take a good item away. And we moved years ago the special permits for a lot of things to DGNR that used to be an ordinance. That's how the DGNR ended up with some of those. So I think I would start there with 6, see how that goes, and then maybe think about maybe we initiate conversations in 7 and have HR come in and talk that way about things. And then see, does it really necessitate an ordinance? And then maybe that's when it goes. Maybe a lot of this stuff gets weeded out at the public service level once we have Kelly come in and, okay, because you can do a lot of these policies and a lot of this stuff already with existing ordinances that don't even require an ordinance change, probably never needed to go to ordinance in the first place. But when it gets to the point where okay, you had these 4 items, but this one we got to go to ordinance. So maybe that's how we do it. Maybe we say something like employment issues shall originate in the Public Service Committee, and then they'll screen them and review them to determine if an ordinance is even required or if this implicates an ordinance. But maybe employment issues all begin there, and I think you weed out a lot of the workload there because ordinance deals with a lot of employment issues that ultimately never result in an ordinance change at all. So maybe that's something to consider. And then if you want to do the name change, I'm open to that.
Thank you. Councilor Israel Rivera.
Yeah, I'm totally cool with getting more stuff in public safety, first of all, especially the signs and roads stuff. I usually what I do is I end up reaching out to Jeff and the city engineer, and we map everything out all in one shot, and we do everything all in one day. And then the next month, if there's more stuff coming up, we'll do the same thing again. So that's not an issue for me. But I like these orders because I'd like to see orders and items be debated within their particular committee. So if it's an HR or a public service thing, and if it needs an ordinance change, I think that should be flushed out, like kind of like what Kevin was saying. It should be flushed out within that public service committee. When it's flushed out, then there can be a recommendation to ordinance if there needs to be an ordinance change. They can work closely, hopefully, with the HR department, right? The chair, so that way they're making sure that they're all on the same page. And if there is something that needs to be ordinance, like the HR department will probably more than likely know that ahead of time, and communicate that to the chair of public service at the time. So then you can still have the conversation, flush everything out, and then send it over to ordinance, so that ordinance can be a lighter lift for ordinance, more or less. That's kind of how I see it conceptually for me. That's why I've had issues in the past with certain things going straight to ordinance. I'm on ordinance and public safety, so either way, I'm still going to be able to have a say-so on it. But at the end of the day, to me, for the purpose of process and the purpose of the system that we have put together, that I'm understanding as we go, right? It feels like certain things should go to these committees, and then if they need to be changed as ordinance, it gets referred to ordinance before it actually goes to full committee, and ordinance gets to weigh in on it. It'll be probably more than likely a smaller conversation, hopefully, right? Because they've already chatted it up. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with it. So I guess what I'm saying is not that different than what Kevin just said, other than I kind of like it. Yeah.
So two things, both of your points. So since starting on the console, it always, every time we take a vote where we do the first reading, second reading, final vote, a question that's been on my mind is almost, what does that look like within the committees? Meaning we have a order around signs. The first reading is taken up at the Public Safety Committee meeting. After that first reading, then it gets sent over to the second reading, which will be the ordinance. At that point, whether it's going to be a longer conversation, shorter conversation, that's just the second reading, and then we have the final vote within the console. Now, I have no idea if that's really how it was meant to be set up from the beginning, but like for me, that just makes sense. Like having two readings with the final vote within the console. Right now, what we do is we refer it back to the full console. We always say this is the first reading, talk about it, second reading, third reading. Now, I'm not sure where that comes from, but I know mentally for me, that's something like from the very beginning, I'm like, it just seems more organized and it just makes more sense, because I think to both your points, it will take away some of the load. Like if something got sent to public safety, public service, all these smaller committees, to have that deeper discussion, really weed it out. And then it gets to ordinance or finance or wherever it is that needs to go to, for them to be like, does this make sense within all of our ordinances? Or, are there other things that we need to talk about at that point? So then by the time it comes to the full console, we have two different committees that have looked at it, have vetted it, and it's much simpler. But that's just my thought with it, and I think this is how I see this playing out. With that said, I know to Councilor Murphy-Romboletti's question around the ordinance, so there is an order that Councilor McGee had put in around changing around Rule 9H, and I believe, and Attorney Bissonnette can correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why ordinance orders need to go to ordinance is because of our Rule 9H. I don't think it's a state law or anything that says all ordinance orders need to go to an ordinance committee, because at the end of the day, every committee can do all these things, but just because within our own city council rules that says 9H, or city council rule 9H that says ordinance orders need to go to ordinance. That's why, that's what happens. Attorney Bissonnette, I saw you come off mute.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So there is another order which I didn't put on here, and we can bring it up in the next charter rules. Like I said, that Councilor McGee had put in, and that would be the change. We would have to look at 9H to see how can we change it so that it doesn't have to go straight to ordinance. With that said, I think we're all sort of on the same page with item 6, item 8, based on everyone's. Councilor Jordan?
In the spirit of what the president said earlier, when you review the rules, you might see that you might not even still have to change 9H, because what it's saying is if you want to change an ordinance, you have to go through the ordinance committee. But what I think some of us are suggesting, and I think you're suggesting this too, is the initial discussion. Find out maybe an ordinance is never even needed. Have that whole, do all that background, do all that legwork, get it ready, get the forms filled out in terms of what you're even proposing, and have it. Then, when you say, yes, I think we're ready to actually, we had these 4 items, but one of them we think, these 3 we can either do with existing ordinances, but this other one, we actually do need a change. Then you refer it to ordinance, and that would be in conformity with our rules already. So I think as you take a look at it, you might find you're good as is. I don't think the point is, I don't think there's anything that precludes us now from having these discussions in these committees that are focused in these areas already. I think you have the capacity to do that. As a matter of fact, we have a rule that says any item can be sent to any committee by vote of the city council.
Councilor McGivern?
I don't know what the full answer is, but we don't need item 6 if we're only going to have an ordinance change eventually sent to the ordinance committee, because we already have what item 6 says. We can send something to any committee. The only 2 questions I have is if it has to go to ordinance, which it sounds like it does, or if it's not going to go to ordinance, does that mean we expect a member of the law department to be at the public service committee now, or public safety committee? And there is language in the charter, which doesn't come into play often, but it allows the ordinance committee and the finance committee to meet during the full city council meetings. And we have at times referred to that and used that. Very rare, but it has happened in the past.
Thank you, Councilor McGivern. What you just said popped a question. Do we not have a solicitor in every committee meeting, or just certain ones? Because I was under the impression that every committee has some sort of solicitor appointment in their meetings. Attorney Bissonnette?
Yes, that's true.
Only with the advent of Zoom is it true. It never was.
So there is there is a solicitor's representation at every committee meeting. Okay. So technically, aside from 9H being the rule that we have that says that we have to send it to ordinance, if there was a order in public safety, Councilor Rivera and the other committee members can ask for legal form to get then sent to the committee to vote on for the ordinance change. But only because 9H is, if it wasn't for 9H, then technically, okay, cool. So with rules, item 6 and 8, I do agree with Councilor McGivern that it can just be, we can decide where they go. I think it'd be good to have it in our rules just so that consistency wise and just have it in our rules, but I'm either way. I agree with the orders. I understand that we don't need these orders in order for that to happen, but if we want to have it, down in our rules, we can decide as a committee what we want to do. So. Councilor Murphy-Rumboletti.
I think, while I agree that we don't need it, the purpose of having it in the rules would be if and when the council changes, it's a little bit more established, so that would, I guess, be my preference. So.
Alright. So we can go item by item if we want. So item 6. So
yeah, you took them up as a package, but you can go item.
But we can vote on it.
Item 6, motion.
So I believe item 6 would be the motion to receive and adopt, and add that to Rule 9B4 in the Public Service Committee, which says that roads and sign issues will all, no, sorry, not 9B4, it'd be 9B3, which will also include roads and sign issues. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Question if I could.
Councilor McGivern.
Just on the language, if it's going forward, the order says instead of the ordinance committee. Isn't that kind of saying that it doesn't go to the ordinance committee at all?
I don't know. I think the initial order can be sent to public safety, but if it has to, well, by our rules, if it has to have an ordinance change, it has to go to ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
But if it doesn't require an ordinance, so like the conversation happens in public safety and it turns out that ordinance change is not required, then we don't have to send it to ordinance because
No, I'm just saying, I get that, but I'm just saying, if the rule's going to be changed, we probably should strike out instead of the ordinance committee or insert
Okay.
prior to the ordinance committee.
Prior.
Yeah, prior.
prior.
That's good.
If
And we do know that we're talking about speed humps too.
Yeah,
yeah,
theoretically, right?
every
I
and
feel like some of that goes to Councilor Rivera's committee already.
and that's because Councilor Rivera has been so like send us all the traffic stuff because these are items. Ordinance has an array of different subjects.
DGR took special permits away from them. Now you want to take traffic away from them. They're not going to have to meet maybe, once every other month.
Oh no, we should meet. We could meet. So for the motion, that we receive and adopt item 6 and strike out. Can we just strike out instead of
Strike
ordinance
it, yeah.
committee?
Strike out.
Because it'll have to go to ordinance if it has to. So,
Oh,
aye.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. For item 7, I think based on the conversation we had tonight, possibly have a longer conversation, maybe one more conversation on it, or whatever the committee decides to do. Love tabling stuff.
Okay, I guess so.
What do you want to do? For something?
I don't know what else is going to be said.
We can vote yea or nay on it. Be sent to the Public Service Committee instead of Ordinance Committee.
Todd,
Wait,
would
what
you
was
be
the-
okay with just sending the items to public service and then if it required an
Yeah, it's the
ordinance,
same
we go to
thing.
ordinance?
Like
So
instead-
basically the
same
same as
thing.
6.
Yeah.
Aye.
Strike out instead and put prior.
Aye.
However you
So,
want it. We're just trying to free up.
Yeah.
yeah. So item 7, the motion would be to receive and adopt item 7 with the amendment that we strike out the instead of Ordinance Committee. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So that's 3-0. And then item 8, well, there's 2 more. Item 8, that the Public Service Committee be renamed the Public Service and Human Resources Committee. It's not a huge one. I'm all in favor.
Motion to receive and adopt.
Motion to receive and adopt. Second. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then item 9, because we don't need another committee right now, we just need committees to let me not use one of the FFFs. That is a leave to withdraw.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to say,
Uh,
it doesn't matter. I'm going to say no.
Okay. No.
But you're going to discuss it
No, it's good.
later
It's
anyway,
funny
so
that
it's
you're
fine.
for it when I'm the maker.
I know.
I need your motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good night, everyone. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you.
For the
Have a good night.
conversation.